So in this SUPboarder review, we're going to be looking at the Aqua Marina Magma. Now, many of you have been asking for this review because you've either purchased this board and you'd like to see what our feedback is, or you haven't quite purchased it yet and you just love to know our thoughts. So this board is 10 foot 10 long, 30 inches wide. It's a 6-inch thick board and it comes in at 290 litres in volume. It weighs 9.1 kilograms when we weighed it. It comes with a single centre slot box fin at the back of the board, and it retails at $489, which is again a cheap price point board. And we've been doing a lot of the cheaper price point SUPs in this midsummer time because a lot of you are getting into the sport and these are the sort of reviews you want to see at the moment. So the materials of this board: internal core of drop stitch and multiple layers of PVC, keeping the board nice and strong and airtight. It's got a hexagon style deck grip, which is actually really cool and pretty funky, over most of the board, and then moving to the back of the board it stops, but then they've put an extra kicker pad or a stomp pad, if you want to call it, which is great for when you want to start doing step back turns or getting to surfing on your board. Some more of the fittings and features you find on this board: up at the front there, they've got their sort of action camera mount, which is a really neat little system. As I said in the other videos, very solidly made, and it's totally universal, goes in its universal joint, goes in any direction, and it faces any angle, and you can also take the top section off and just remove your camera like that. So that's a really neat little feature, and it's nice that comes as standard with the board. Moving back, then you've got your bungees, obviously for putting your stash in your cargo, your flip-flops, drinks, dry bags. It's a nice, fairly big area to put something under there, so that's nice. You can put something quite large under there. Moving back, you've got your carry handle. It's quite basic, but it is absolutely fine. It's not super padded or anything, but it's strong and it's going to carry your board down to the beach. And at the back of the board there, you've got your leashing point and then your inflation valve. The PSI pressure for this board is recommended at 15 PSI, which is what we pumped it up and used it on the water, and when we put the board into our deflection test. A deflection test is where we measure the bend of the board, how bendy the board is, and we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put 75 kilograms of weight on the center of the board, and then we measure how much the board dropped. And at 15 PSI, the board dropped 20 millimeters, which is pretty much average. It's not a super stiff board, but then it isn't a really expensive board either, with extra stiffening rods down the rails of the board. So it's pretty much adequate at the price point and the thickness the board is. So what do you get for $489? Well, we've already talked about the camera mount. That comes as standard. You get a Schrader inflation valve, which is great if you've got an electric car pump. You can just plug this into your valve at the back there, and it just takes a normal car pump or a bike pump. You wouldn't want to be pumping up with a bike pump because it would take you forever. But an electric car pump, a lot of you have got those in your cars. Great if you want to just get most of the pressure in with the pump. Put this on, finish off the board, get it to 15 PSI, got time to get your wetsuit on, get all the other stuff ready. So that's a nice feature. It's nice it comes as standard with these boards. The bag itself is a simple sort of stuff foldable sack system, very easy to use. This is the biggest thing about this. It's so easy to put in. It opens right up to a big flat area. You roll your board up, you place it inside, and then you just fold it all back and clip it over the top. I actually really like this system. It's very simple. Okay, yeah, it's really basic. It's not a padded bag, but it does cover your SUP up, stops it getting damaged. Yeah, the water's going to come out and it's going to drain the back of your car, but it is a simple stuff sack, foldable bag that they're not pretending it's to be anything it isn't. Otherwise than that, moving on to the pump. So it comes with a sort of standard size pump. So it's a slimline pump, which means it's quite easy to put the air in the board. It's not a two-way pump, so it's a one-way pump. So only pumps on the downstroke. A lot of the other brands in the market at the moment have all got two-way pumps, so maybe that's really the drawback I might draw into later on. But it does pump the board up to 15 PSI, but it does take a little bit longer than a double action pump would do. So looking at the bottom of the Magma, it's got a cool, funky octopus sort of tattoo design on the bottom. This board's been pulled up and down the beach and there's no marks or scratches on the bottom at all, so that's really nice. It's got a hard-wearing graphic and print they've put on this board. So the basic shape of the board, or the rocker line of the board, small bit of rocker at the front there, which helps the water go under the board and travel towards the back. Obviously, if you had a completely flat board at the nose, it would just nosedive all the time. So that's a small bit of rocker up at the nose there. Then it's flat midsection with a tiny bit of tail kick at the back there. So really it's aimed at sort of all-round paddling fun, ease of paddling, and maybe a little bit of surf because of that little bit of tail kick at the end there. But looking back at the fin, it comes with a slot box fin system, which we've reviewed lots and lots of boards with this system lately, and it has become a well-established system in the industry. Very easy to use, slide it back in the fin box, and then you put a little clip system in there. Now the good thing is, because these fins are becoming more and more used in the industry, they become easy to find if you end up breaking one or damaging one. They're definitely not as strong as sort of fixed, maybe PVC molded fins. So if you were going to be using this with a family, you might want to look after this fin system a little bit more, maybe slide it out if the kids are standing on the board on the beach, for example. But the good thing about this fin box system over sort of the more smaller PVC 3 molded fins you find on some other boards is it does offer a little bit more tracking and ease of tracking. So when you get into paddleboarding, it's easier to go in a straight line because of the bigger center back fin. So what's the Magma like to paddle on the water? Well, when you have a 10'10" long board, which is fairly long, by 30 wide, which it isn't that wide, it does give you that extra bit of glide or flow over the water, so it makes it easier to paddle longer distances with less effort. A shorter, fatter board, let's say it's 10'10" still, but 32 wide, it would be slower to paddle. The downside to that is 30 wide isn't as stable as obviously a 32 wide board, so it's definitely going to be better for the lighter riders, or the riders have got a bit more skill. But when you're paddling it, yeah, so like I said, offers you a nice amount of glide, and it's easy to paddle in a straight line, and still, because they've got this nice big deck pad all the way at the back here, and they've got the stomp pad right at the back, if you want to get into step back turns or more advanced maneuvers or a little bit of surf, it's really nice to have this there, so you can put your foot on the stomp pad, on the deck pad, and really know your foot's in the right place to maneuver the board, which is great. Now, because the volume of the board is 290 litres, this board can take a lot of weight, so it should be able to take paddlers up to 95, 100 kilos easily for the volume. But because it's 30 wide and because it's 6 inches thick, so you're sitting a little bit higher off the water, the bigger paddlers will find it a little bit more tippy than a 32 wide board of maybe 5 or 6 inches thick. Because you're higher off the water, you're a little bit more elevated, and it's definitely better for the lighter weight riders. I'm going to say sub 80 kilos, and maybe 85, but 80 kilos and down to 50 kilos, it's a much better weight for you. Remember, again, that's because it's a little bit narrower and it's obviously thicker than a 5 or 4 inch thick board. But if you're in that weight bracket of 80 kilos and below, and you want a board that paddles really easy in a straight line, offers you quite a lot of glide and speed for the paddle strokes you put in, and also maybe get yourself in a little bit of surf and just a bit of mucking about, but a little bit more orientated to yourself than family fun and playing around with the family. This is the sort of board you could be looking at over something like the Aqua Marina Beast, which is, for instance, 10'6" by 32. That's a little bit more all-round based, family fun, everybody can get on and ride it. This is a little bit more tailored to one person specifically, I would say. Well, pros and cons and value for money. Well, the pros to this Aqua Marina board, and to be honest, a lot of them, they look really good and they are finished off very well and to a good standard. The deck pad all looks really well finished, and the logoing and the graphics, and it's just there's little bits of detail that they do put in this that lots of other brands we do not see, like things where the deck pad wraps around the rail over the seam, just gives it a very crisp looking side to the board and just looks really good. The eyelets at the front here are all cut into the deck pad, so they look really well finished. So just the general look of the board, especially for the money, is really, really good. And cons, well, we could talk about the bag because it's like a simple foldable stuff sack, but I don't really think that's a problem. It doesn't pretend to be anything it's not, and it does do, and it's very easy to use in general. The pump, however, is fine. It gets the air in the board, but it's a shame it's not a double action pump like other brands have got on the market. But I'm sure that's something that Aqua Marina will change in time. But it does pump the board up absolutely fine to 15 psi, and then looking at all of that for value for money, remember it's $489. It's probably one of the cheapest boards on the market, definitely from a well-known brand, so you do get a lot of value for that price point at $489. So I hope you found that SUPboarder review interesting and informative, and you found out if the Aqua Marina Magma is the board for you. Remember, if you want to check out the full review of this with all the other details and sliders and badge ratings, check this video out on SUPboardermag.com. But until next time, we'll see you on YouTube or on SUPboarder. Thanks a lot.